Okay, and let me bring up my participant screen so we can see when all the schools join in. We've got a couple of schools joining. Welcome everyone, good morning. I'll go ahead and start with our introduction as we've got more people joining in. Good morning everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We will get started with the program in just a minute. I want to give everyone some proper time to log on. We have a lot of friends joining us today. This morning we have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders from Maclay School and 4th and 5th graders from Roberts Elementary. I know some of you are joining us from your classrooms and others are digital students joining us from home, which is awesome. So welcome everyone. My name is Liz and I work at Midtown Reader, a bookstore here in Tallahassee. Today I am excited to introduce you to two very special guests. Annie Barrows is joining us all the way from California, and Sam Ricks is out in Utah. Let me tell you a little bit about Annie to start. She is an author, which, as you probably know, is a person who writes books. She wrote the Ivy and Bean books. I'm sure many of you have read those. They are awesome stories and super fun. Her newest books are all about a 9-year-old kid named Iggy, who never met an impulse he didn't like. Today we'll be talking about one of those stories called Iggy is the Hero of Everything. Like Iggy, Annie would go to great lengths to protect her candy, but unlike Iggy, she would never eat a banana Laffy Taffy. I wouldn't either. So Annie writes the words for the books, but who draws the pictures? That's Sam's job. He's an illustrator. Sam is so good at drawing that his books have won some really cool awards. He likes Pixar movies, running, and Reese's Pieces. Today, he's going to show us how to draw some of his characters, so be sure to have a pencil and paper ready. Okay, if you have a question for Annie or Sam, you can ask your teacher to send it to us using the Q&A button on their screen, or if you're visiting us from at home, you can do it on your own computer. If we have time at the end, which we definitely should, Annie and Sam will answer those questions for you. Let's give a warm welcome to Annie Barrows and Sam Ricks. Take it away, Annie and Sam.
Thank you so much, Liz. Hi, kids. I can't see your little faces, but I know they're out there, so I'm very happy to not quite see you. So what Liz said is true. We are going to be talking about Iggy today. Now, this is the book we're going to be talking about today. Iggy is the hero of everything. But this is the 3rd book in the series. This is the brand new 3rd book of the series. Just was born this week. And the 1st and 2nd books I also have here. This is the 1st one, The Best of Iggy. And this is the 2nd one, Iggy is better than ever, which of course he is. I'm going to tell you, in case you don't know each and every little thing about Iggy, I'm going to give you a little background on Iggy. Now, as you know, Iggy's 9, he's in 4th grade. And the stories about Iggy are essentially about Iggy acting completely reasonably, given the circumstances he finds himself in, and other people having some kind of weird problem with what he does. Like, for example, if Iggy finds himself locked in a bathroom, through no fault of his own, why do people get really upset when he covers himself with shaving cream, eyeliner, and lipstick? Isn't that just decorating? Isn't that just a fun use of time? Sure it is. Why would anyone have a problem with this? And in the 2nd book, Iggy finds himself, for example, in a situation I know you have all experienced in some sort of form or another. There's Iggy. He has a perfectly good basketball. It's lunch recess. He waits patiently for the court to open up or for the kids to let him play in. They don't. The 5th graders don't let him in. He waits. He waits. He waits all lunch. He waits so long that the lunch bell finally rings saying recess is over, and his teacher saying, Iggy, line up. And so while he's running to obediently get in line, he happens to throw the basketball, which would have been just really an amazing shot if he had made it. But unfortunately, he doesn't make it. And oops, he misses. And ooh, down goes Miss Hackerman. Now, does this mean Iggy is bad? No, of course not. It's an accident, and an accident can happen to anyone. And he's very sorry for Miss Hackerman anyway. So today, as I said, we're going to be talking about the third book of Iggy being completely reasonable and other people having issues. And the plan is that I'm going to read for a little while. I'm not going to read the whole book because you guys have stuff to learn. And then Sam is going to do the really good part where he's going to show you some important aspects of interpreting characters in art. And then he's going to teach you how to do it yourself. But first, the reading. Chapter 1, Food for Thought. There are plenty of people in this world who eat squid. Nobody's making them eat it. They like it. Squid, cooked in squid ink, they say. Ooh, can I have seconds? There are some people who think cheese is a dessert. They go to a restaurant and instead of cake or pie or an ice cream sundae, they say, ooh, I'll have the cheese. Yum. What do we learn from this? That some people are bonkers? No, we learn that different people have different opinions. They have different points of view. From my point of view, eating cheese when you could have cake is weird. But from the point of view of the cheese eater, that is one tasty hunk of cheese. Here's another way to say it. The cheese eater and I have different interpretations of the word dessert. And guess what? Neither of us is wrong. I can say to the cheese eater, eat your cheese in peace and happiness, you cheese eater. More cake for me. And the cheese eater can say, no, he can't. His mouth is full. Gross. Are you wondering if this whole book is going to be about cheese? It isn't. I think I'm done talking about cheese. The important thing is this. People can have different points of view about a thing, like dessert, or about an event. Like, for example, a kid jumping off a roof. Two people can look at a kid jumping off a roof, and one will say, oh, that is very bad. And the other will say, cool. And it is possible that both of them are right. They have different interpretations of the same event. Now, obviously, there are some things that cannot have different interpretations, like a cat. A creature either is a cat or isn't a cat. You can't look at a crocodile and say, in my opinion, that's a cat. Well, you can, but you'd be both annoying and also possibly eaten. Facts stay the same, while words and ideas and events are open to interpretation. You got it? You sure? Good. Because several of the things that Iggy Frangie does in this book are apparently, there's Iggy, open to interpretation. Some of you may have already met Iggy, but if you haven't, I'm going to tell you a few facts about him. Iggy is 9. He is in the 4th grade. He is the main character of this book, which means that he does most of the important things in it. There are people, like, for example, Iggy's mom and dad, Rudy Heckie's mom and dad, and Iggy's sister, Maribel, who thinks that the things Iggy does in this book are bad. Even very bad, and irresponsible and careless and unsafe and, bad. But some people, like, for example, Iggy and me, we think Iggy is brave and resourceful and caring and generous. In fact, we think Iggy is a hero. Clearly, people have different opinions about Iggy and the things he does. That is their right. Iggy and I will not stand in their way. We would simply like to point out that if Iggy does one or two or three things and other people hurt themselves, that does not mean that Iggy caused their problems. In our opinion, they caused their own problems. But you may decide for yourself about Iggy after you read about what he does. You are free to interpret Iggy's actions any way you want, right or wrong. However, one thing is not open to interpretation, and that is how it began. It began with a fact, and the fact is this: 2 days after Halloween, the Hecky's house was robbed. Chapter 2, Candy in Peril. The Heckies were Iggy's neighbors. Their house was only 3 houses away from Iggy's house. If the thieves had been just a little more energetic and walked just a little farther, they might have robbed Iggy's house. They might have sneaked down the path beside Iggy's house, opened the gate, gone into the backyard, stood on a garden chair, smashed a window, climbed through it, and stolen Iggy's parents' computers and Iggy's mom's earrings and a jar with coins in it. They might even have poured orange juice inside their toaster, which is something the robbers did in the Hecky's house. They did all those things in the Hecky's house. Mr. and Mrs. Hecky came over to tell Iggy's parents all about it. Iggy just happened to be in the kitchen at the time. He was looking at his Halloween candy, only looking, not eating. On Halloween, Iggy was allowed to stuff himself with candy, but after that, he could only have 1 piece after lunch and 1 piece after dinner if he ate his vegetable. Whew, and you want to know what's open to interpretation? The word ate. When Mr. and Mrs. Hecky came over, Iggy had already yammed down his lunch piece of candy, and now he was laying his candy out on the counter to plan which one he was going to eat after dinner. Fun size is not as much fun as regular size. "I'm so sorry, Jan," said Iggy's mom in the next room. She had said this several times before. "I feel like it's not even my house anymore," said Mrs. Hecky. She had said this several times before, too. "Danita hasn't slept a wink since then." Danita was her daughter. She was 13 and went to the same middle school as Iggy's sister, Maribel. "And neither has Rudy." Good, thought Iggy. Rudy Heckie was only 7 years old, but for some reason, he thought he was the coolest kid in the world. He thought he was cooler than Iggy, which he wasn't. Then Mrs. Hecky said something shocking. "Can you believe they took all his Halloween candy? A little boy's candy. Why would they do something like that?" Duh. Iggy knew exactly why they would do something like that. Candy's good. Everyone wants it, thieves included. Iggy looked down at the counter. He had a lot of good stuff left. Kit Kats, 2 packs of Skittles, Reese's, not pieces, but whole cups, 3 packs of them, 8 candy bars of different kinds, all fun size, but still. 1 regular size Twix, 4 peppermint patties, which he liked and Maribel didn't, so he had traded 2 things of sweet tarts for her 2 peppermint patties. Plus, he had a bunch of less good stuff like lollipops and bubble gum and Laffy Taffy and those weird, hard, round candies that don't even have a name and hurt the top of your mouth. Sitting there, looking at his candy, Iggy experienced 2 different kinds of fear, one right after the other. The first fear was that his mom was about to say something like, "I'm sure Iggy would be glad to share his Halloween candy with dear, sweet little Rudy." Iggy quickly swept his candy into a bag, preparing to run away and hide with it. But all his mom said was, "I'm so sorry." What a great mom. "We thought we should let everyone know," said Mr. Hecky in a deep, growly voice. "This could be the beginning of a crime wave, and we all need to be ready to defend ourselves." "Thanks," said Iggy's dad in a not very growly voice. A crime wave? Iggy experienced the second fear. What if thieves broke into his house and stole his candy? He waited all year for Halloween candy. Then Iggy experienced another fear, which wasn't really a third fear, but an add-on to the second fear. What if thieves broke into his house and stole not only his Halloween candy, but the computers too. That's what they'd done at the Heckies. Then he would have no candy and no video games. That would be bad. Do you folks have an alarm? Mr. Hecky growled. No, said Iggy's dad. Might be time to get one. Thanks, Carl, said Iggy's dad again. We'll give it some thought. Some thought? They were in the middle of a crime wave. Iggy opened his bag and looked at his candy again. This was no time to think. This was time to protect his candy. The following moment, Iggy got an idea. Some people say it wasn't a very good idea, but they are wrong. It had 3 parts, this idea, so it was going to take some time, some effort, some sweat. But it was an idea that would save his candy, defend his family, and bring the crime wave to a crashing halt. It was, in other words, a brilliant idea. Iggy zipped upstairs, and there, part 1 began. And if y'all want to find out what part 1 is, you got to read the book yourself. So, as you can tell, this book has a very educational aspect. There's a lot in it about interpretation and how people can have different interpretations of the same thing. So now my pal Sam here is going to show you how this plays out in the art. Over to you, Sam.
All right, here we go. I'm excited to show you some of this. So if you haven't got your paper and your pencil out to draw with, go ahead and do that, because we're going to make some interpretations of our own today. So like Annie mentioned as she was doing her reading, there are a lot of different ways to interpret Iggy's behavior in this book. Some people think that Iggy's a great kid. Iggy himself sees himself as the hero. What's the big deal? What he's doing is protecting his family and helping them out. His mom would like to think that her son is an angel all the time, although Iggy's behavior often gets in the way of that interpretation. And of course, Mr. Hecky and many other people in this book see Iggy's behavior as downright awful. So as an illustrator, my job is to interpret the words that Annie puts together. So when I get what's called a manuscript, when I get the words from Annie, they look like this. It's the whole story with just words, amazing words and very funny words.
Thank you.
But it's just words. And my job is to go in and figure out ways to visually represent what Annie's written. So what I'll do is I'll first read the manuscript, and then I'll make little notes in the margins of things that I think could be funny. So here's an example. Let's see if you can see it okay. There's an example of the crocodile eating the kid. That didn't make it into the final version, but you see something similar to that in the finished version. So I'll make little teeny sketches, and then I'll also do sketches of things like the cover. So let's see if I can show this a little bit. So here are some different variations of what I think the cover could look like. And they're really small drawings. They're about the size of my thumb. I'll do drawings of characters. So I'll show you a few of those here. So we talked a little bit about Rudy Heckie. And this isn't how he turned out in the final version of the book, but here are some studies of Rudy. So this is all to kind of figure out what the characters are like, what will be the most funny or give the most expression to the characters. And I'll do similar things for the covers. So this is a little bit bigger sketch of the cover. And then some different variations of it. I do a lot of those until I get one that I feel like really works and that the editor thinks really works. And then we'll go on to finish the final art. So again, my job is to interpret the words and turn them into something visually interesting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make our own interpretations of Iggy. So get your pencils out, and here we go. Okay, so today we're only going to draw Iggy's head. We're not going to draw his whole body because that would take us a little while. And so we're just going to draw his face. So Iggy's face is really based on just one shape. It's kind of an upside down egg shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and draw an oval on our page. And you can draw the oval so that the bottom it's like a little bit more pointy than it is at the top. Something like that. There we go. There's our ovalish upside down egg shape. And now about a little bit more than halfway down the egg shape, we're going to draw two semicircles. So we're going to draw a semicircle here and a half circle here. Now we're going to go ahead and draw one of the parts of Iggy's body that makes him really expressive and interesting and unique, which is his hair. So Iggy's hair is really kind of wavy. It's a little bit wild like he is. Do you still have your inspiration for
I do.
Iggy?
This is what I found this in my house. And I said, hey, look, it's Iggy.
His hair is wild and crazy. And so what you'll do is you'll draw some kind of squiggles on the top of his head. And those squiggles can go a little bit lower down than the curve, the top of that curve of the egg shape. And now you're going to go ahead and erase out that egg-shaped part so that all it remains is the hair. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip the facial features for just a second. We're going to go ahead and draw his neck, which is just two lines right underneath his chin, and then kind of a semicircle for his collar. And then also we're going to draw some curves underneath his head here, and some curves for the stripes on his shirt. There we go. And one other thing here, so about halfway across his face, kind of close to where his ears are, we're also going to make his nose. And his nose is really just like a sideways check mark or a V or part of a triangle without the last part of the triangle. And now we're going to go ahead and draw his facial expressions. Now, I'm going to show you a few different facial expressions that you could try out. You don't have to copy what I'm doing right now. And then I'll put some of those facial expressions to the side, and then you can determine what you want Iggy's facial expression to be. So in this book, like Annie mentioned, Iggy experiences a lot of different emotions, and he shows a lot of those emotions. The emotions can be shown really, really well through, especially through the eyes of the character. So I'm going to show you that in just a second here. So in Iggy, sometimes he is a little bit mischievous. Sometimes he's just plain happy. Sometimes he's annoyed, like when his parents make him eat only one piece of candy. So if you're annoyed, sometimes you can draw like a little squiggly line, or you can move the mouth down a little bit lower on the face. Like, oh man, that was not cool, not fun. He gets angry sometimes. And one of the things that you can do, especially in a book like this, is it's okay to really exaggerate things. In fact, if you want to exaggerate things, you can make the eyes super, super big. Like, for example, if Iggy is scared, you can really make things, You can make him really scared if you make his pupils a little bit smaller. There we go. You can make kind of rings or kind of stretch areas under his eyes for how big his eyes are getting if he's scared. So lots of different ways to show Iggy's expressions. Oh, one that shows up not too often in these books, but another one would be our friend Iggy's kind of angelic face. Well, I'm going to put these little marks to the side for his ears, by the way. I forgot about that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to put some of those expressions off to the side, and you can decide what you want to draw on your Iggy face. So I'll just do a bunch of different versions here of what you might try, from angry to really scared to annoyed, or I didn't do this one before, but maybe sad. And of course, the mouth expressions are important as well. So in this book, Iggy whistles, he gets upset, he's scared of things, just a plain old smile. So lots of different ways you could do his expressions. I'm going to go ahead and draw one here. There we go. And one thing I didn't mention, Iggy has freckles, so you can add a little bit of those on there. And now we're going to go ahead and shade in our friend Iggy. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently because I'm on a computer, but what I like to do when I'm drawing pretty much anything is I figure out where the light is coming from in the drawing. So if the light is coming from over here, for example, you don't have to draw this part, I'm just showing you. If the light's coming from over here, if the sun's shining over here, then the sun is going to be shining this way, and the shadows are going to be on this side of Iggy's face. And if I draw, if there's a light coming over here, then the shadows are going to be on the other side. So we're going to pretend really quick that the shadows are going to be on this side, and that the sun or the light is coming from over here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and grab a different pencil here. And we're going to go ahead and start shading the side of Iggy's face where the sun is not. So you can take your pencil and just lightly shade along the side of Iggy's face where you've determined the sun is not going to be. You can draw maybe a little bit of shading underneath Iggy's nose. You can draw some shading under his ears. Maybe there's a little bit of a shadow under his neck. His chin is casting a little bit of a shadow. Maybe there's a shadow falling on his shoulders. Of course, there's a little bit of shadows on his shirt. And his hair is a little bit darker, so we'll go ahead and his hair, the kind of area that you fill in for his hair is also kind of wild like the rest of his hair. So you can just take your pencil and go hog wild here. And a trick that you've probably already figured out in life is that you can take your pencil and you can use your finger to kind of smudge the pencil a little bit and make more shading as well if you want to make your shadows softer. I can't really do it on the computer, but I've seen kids do it a lot, and it's a great way to get shadows that are kind of more subtle, I guess, or just not as strong of shadows. I'm going to do a little bit of shading on his cheeks here. And maybe a little bit of rosiness on his nose. And there's his other cheek. Maybe a little bit of shadows on his teeth. And I forgot about this part, but we're going to add some stripes to his shirt and a little bit of shadows to the stripes. So really, really quickly, there is an idea of how to do your own interpretation of Iggy. Lots of different ways you can make his expressions work. And I hope you had fun. I hope you try it out a little bit more and have a fun time drawing later on.
See, look, Liz did it. Look what Liz did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And you know what, people?
Oh,
We're going to take a minute and you're going to say, oh, thank goodness Annie doesn't do the pictures for this book.
Yes.
That's the best I could do. What's the
So
matter with
good.
his teeth, Sam?
it's beautiful, Annie. It looks
No,
great.
yours is, oh, your hair is
Oh,
really
look at that
Thank
hair.
you. I used pen
Yeah,
because I broke my pencil and
Yeah,
so I didn't do
that's-
shading, but
that's great.
yeah, look, see, gosh. Okay, so
Actually-
we all need to be really happy that Sam is making these pictures. Not that Liz and I we are doing our very best and we're doing a pretty good job, but I think Sam is still the person who should be doing the pictures in our books. Okay, now we've had this really good talk about interpretation, and now it's going to be question time because we want to hear if you have any questions, you lay them on us. Either Sam or I, ask us anything.
We're ready.
we do have one question from Miss Armstrong's classroom. They want to know, is Iggy named after anyone?
Ooh, right to the heart of the matter. Okay, he is, but he's really kind of embarrassed about his name because Iggy's the nickname, okay? And so I'm not going to tell you what his real name is, all right? Because he would be embarrassed. He doesn't like to talk about it. So yeah, his name right now, yes, he's named after someone. I'm not going to tell you what his real name is or who he's named after. It's personal.
That's very fair.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, nobody's ever asked me this before.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I love a new question.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, our next question is from Darlene. She wants to know, why do you like writing books?
Well, that's an easy question to answer. Okay, get this. My commute is down my hall. That's good. I get to sit around making up stories all day long in my pajamas if I want to. When I get tired of it, I get to go look in my refrigerator and see what's there to play with. Then I make up stories. I think I'm really funny. I write them. I think I'm really, really funny. They get turned into a book. I love books. And then I get to go out and talk to kids about my book. What's not to like? It's a great job. It's fantastic. I personally think it's the best job.
Perfect answer. I love that. I want to be a writer too now.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question for Sam from Mr. Fisher's class. They want to know how you choose the shapes to block out the characters.
That's a good question. A lot of times I'll just play around with, I mean, I don't know if I can show you this. Let's see. I'll just kind of play around with different face shapes. So like that one I was showing you before, I'll play around with like taller versions of a shape, maybe more squat versions, thinner or larger versions of shapes. And I play around until I find something that I think works. So it's not like I just like imagine it in my head one day and it's like perfectly formed. I have to kind of play around with it, work with it, and figure it out. It takes a little bit of work.
Can I ask a question? Okay, how do you know when you got it?
Usually if I laugh at it a lot, at least in this case,
Yeah.
I think also like I can't draw something that's so complicated that I can't repeat it.
Mhm.
You know, it has to be something that I can do over and over again across the whole book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do like a Michelangelo painting for each.
Save that for the
Save that for later. So
Beautiful. Okay, our next question is from Lori. Lori wants to know, how old were you when you wrote your first book?
Old, really old. I had a whole other job for a long time. So I was 30. When I wrote my first book, I was 34. 34. And I would show it to you, except my computer's sitting on it.
Wonderful. Okay, Darlene wants to know, how long did it take to write this book?
Well, here's what happens. Okay, when I write an Iggy book, it takes me about a month and a half to write the first draft. I write the whole manuscript. That's the first draft. The first time I write it, I am typing, I am laughing. I think I am so hilarious. So when I get to the end of that draft, I look at that and I think, oh, this is a masterpiece. This is perfect. However, I have learned that that is incorrect. So what I do then is I take that manuscript and I stick it in my drawer here, and I don't look at it for 2 weeks. Then I take it out again and I read it and I think, this is horrible. This is the worst thing I've ever written. I better get to work rewriting this. So I write it again. Maybe another month goes by, put it back in that drawer, take it out again, think, this could use some work, write it again, back in the drawer. You see how that goes? I do that about 4 or 5 times. And then finally, when I think, okay, when I take it out of the drawer and I read it and I think, not bad, then I send it to the editor, my editor in New York City. And then she comes back and tells me, yep, you got to write this thing again. And then, then when I finally written it maybe 5, maybe 6 times, then it's considered done. So that whole process might take 6 months, but as you can see, I'm not writing the whole time because it's got to go into the drawer and sit there and get terrible. And only then, after it's been written this many times, then it's considered finished, and then Sam sees it, because we don't want to waste Sam's time. He can't be drawing things that later on I take out.
And take out, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a total waste of time. And besides, what we want is for him to like the manuscript instead of reading the part that's really bad. So then he takes over. What do you do then?
Then I take over, and then I draw, like I said, those small little sketches. I'll draw sketches like this, or sketches kind of that show what it could look like in a layout. And then I make bigger sketches, and then I send those sketches off to the editor. And then I'll make finished artwork and send it off to the editor. And then there's somebody that Annie can kind of explain the rest of the process here.
Okay, because what happens is, okay, remember how when he showed you the manuscript, when he gets the story, it looks like pieces of paper.
Yep.
So he gets pieces of paper. Those are the words. He makes the pictures. But right now, it's not a book because we've got beautiful pictures, fabulous text, but that's not a book. What you need to make a book is a whole other person called a designer who puts the words and the pictures together into pages. That person who's with the publisher takes the words and the pictures and arranges them in pages so you can read them. Then they take pictures of those pages and send them to the printer. The printer is this whole other business, that's this enormous building where they print thousands and thousands and thousands of copies of the pages all at the same time. And then they have to let them dry. And then they print the cover of the book, and then they attach the pages and the cover so that it looks like a book. Up until that point, it's not a book. So what you're seeing when you look at a book is something that comes at the end of a whole lot of different people working together to make it. And, in some ways, I always think I get too much credit for somehow making the book, because Sam and I probably get
there's so much else involved.
Credit. There's so many other people involved. And when I'm done with my work, not a book. When Sam's done with his work, not a book. It's only after a whole lot of other people join together that it's a book.
And how long is that process, Annie?
Well, I think we
Total.
figured out that from the point where I lie on my floor going, oh, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? What am I going to write? And I think, oh, wait, I know what I'm going to write. From that moment till the moment the book exists. I think we figured out that the absolute shortest amount of time it can take is 14 months. And that's really pushing it.
It's a
I would
long
say,
time.
yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on how long I spend on my floor moaning and groaning, but I mean, 16 months is more likely, really.
Wow, that takes a long time.
Yes.
We've got kind of a similar question for Sam. How did you get the pictures into the book if you make them on the computer?
That is kind of a tricky question, but I make them on the computer at the exact right size to fit into the layout that the designer has made. And then I send the pictures off to the publisher, and the publisher takes those pictures, they're kind of like photographs, and the words, and puts them together on the computer, sends them to the printer, and then the printer takes those and turns them into something that can actually be printed onto a page. And then, like Annie said, then the book is made.
So, and another important thing here is that one thing that must be known by me and by Sam is how big and how long this book is going to be. That we need to know that before we start. I need to know how many pages I have, how many words I'm supposed to be writing. He needs to know what size
The size is.
I'm supposed to be thinking. So that in order for there to end up being a book in something less than 25 years, we need to know those facts before we even begin.
Yep.
Super cool. Okay, I think we have time for one, maybe two more questions. Abby wants to know, do you think you will write a fourth Iggy book?
Well, as a matter of fact, the fourth Iggy book is right over there. I already wrote it. We're still in the stage where the editor is telling me that, you remember how I mentioned that I think the book is fine, and I send it to my editor, and then my editor comes back and says, no, not fine. You better rewrite this thing again. That's the stage we're in right now. But no, there's the step. It's there. Trust me. Number 4 coming your way.
Awesome.
Soonish.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. I'm not sure who this question is from. It's from Classroom iPad. They want to know, how many books have you written and illustrated together?
This is 3. This is the third book.
Number
We
3.
never worked before together before the Iggy series, but now we're old hands.
That's right.
Wonderful. And number 4 on the way.
Yes.
We'd love to see it. Okay,
coming.
I'll go ahead and do one more. Liz wants to know, what is your favorite Iggy book and what is your favorite Iggy drawing?
Ooh.
Oh.
No one ever asked that second question before.
Yeah.
Hang on.
All right. Gosh.
Oh,
Okay.
he's going to get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many good ones in here. Okay. All right. For a favorite Iggy book, I can't pick favorites. I'm like a mom. You can't say to a mom, what's your favorite child? Don't worry, I won't mind if it's not me. That never works. Moms love their children. I love my books. Look at these cute books. They're so fun. They're so cute. Really, how could I pick? Love them. I mean, this is right now, this is the newest baby. So I'm particularly fond of this one, but no, I can't pick. As for, gosh, favorite image. All right, Sam, do you have one?
Well, I don't know that I have a favorite, and I definitely don't have a favorite book. But anytime the robbers show up in the book, I just think it's so fun.
Yeah,
Those guys, the poor guys.
The robbers are good.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's these funny. I remember. Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, like the picture on the front of the first cover, that was pretty hard to get to, right? There were a lot of candidates for this, and I love the expression on Iggy's face in that book. But I also really like, I'm not saying it's my favorite because I can't pick a favorite image either, but I really like this picture right here. I've always really liked this picture of Iggy with the great watching eyes looking at him.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, that's just how kids feel sometimes, like they cannot escape surveillance.
Awesome. Those are definitely some great illustrations. And I know everyone is excited to get their own copies of the book and see all of the wonderful illustrations that Sam has come up with to reflect your wonderful words, Annie. And I'm so sorry, we have lots more questions in the queue, but we are unfortunately out of time today. I want to go ahead and thank Annie and Sam for both joining us today, as well as all of our students, both in school and at home, who've joined us. It was a super, super fun conversation. I hope you all enjoyed it. Any last words for us, Annie and Sam?
Yes, I have a last word, which is thank you, Midtown Reader, for hosting us today. And thank you, kids, for being here. I just want to give a shout out. If you find that you must have an Iggy book, I would suggest you go to Midtown Reader and satisfy that urge.
Agreed. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.
Later.